Welcome, everyone, to our webinar on growing your sales using LinkedIn. I'm going to be starting up right at noon Central Time. It's 10 a.m. here on the West Coast. And so we will be starting. On the right-hand side, a little housekeeping, on the right-hand side of your viewer, you'll see an area where you can either put questions or put in chat. We'll look at both when you have questions. But thanks for joining us, and we'll get ready to start in just a couple of minutes. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on growing your sales using LinkedIn, and it's sponsored by CBMC and IDN. And I just wanted to thank you for coming. Just to orient you, is on the right-hand side of your window, you should see an area where you can put in chat or questions. The questions is got a little flip down, but if you put it in either or, I can see them, pull them up, and be happy to answer them. At the end, we will open it up for questions for everybody. But as we kind of go along, if you've got a question, just type it in and we'll be happy to answer and make sure we answer that at the end of this broadcast. The other thing that always gets asked is, will there be a replay? Yes, we will make a replay available at the end. And thank you for joining us. And why don't we get started? So my name's Colin Parker. My company's called Lone Star Sales Performance, and we work with small companies to help them improve their sales. And so one of my favorite tools, and I've been using it since I've started my business, well, I was using it before that, but is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a great tool for helping you find customers, prospects, leads, and have really good conversation with people who ultimately can and will buy from you. So what does every business need? Well, every business, no matter what you're doing, needs sales. You need to have revenue coming in. And often what I hear from most people is it's really hard to find sales. It's really hard to find prospects and leads for their business. So last week, I spoke at a conference, and they were telling me that they have a real hard time finding leads and people to talk to and prospects. And so using LinkedIn, I did a search. And so this group's focus was selling to personal injury lawyers. And so just doing a search on the United States with the job title of attorney and using the keywords personal injury for their profile, I found 88,364 prospects who had that title on LinkedIn. So here's 8,000 or 88,364 people that they could be trying to connect with on LinkedIn. Another one, do a quick search in the construction industry for the title of president in the U.S. I can come back with 29,391 profiles on LinkedIn who have that current job title. Vice president of sales in the printing industry, same thing. If I sold something to vice presidents of sales in the printing industry, I have a ready-made list out of LinkedIn of 2,256. And with 2 people getting added to LinkedIn every second, that number changes and grows. So LinkedIn is the perfect place for you to find your ideal customer. Here's another search I did recently, which was a much narrower list, which was people with vice president of human resources. And what you'll find is when you do some of these searches is sometimes the numbers are huge and you have to refine it more. Sometimes they're a little small. Sometimes you actually might not have the title correct. So if I also did a search of director with human resources, it would provide more people and more people in those searches. So what I want to do is I want to spend the time today is really giving you a look at LinkedIn from a sales perspective. Now, I always hear when I talk about LinkedIn, someone always says, but I'm not looking for a job. You're absolutely right. You're not looking for a job. But that's really a narrow view of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a auto-updating funnel of prospects and leads for your business. And if you're using it correctly, you'll be able to find the right people for your business. Let me give you some stats on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has over 470 million members in 200 countries. More than 2 new members join LinkedIn every second. There's over 130 professionals from the United States on there. It's Canada right now is about 14 million professionals on LinkedIn. The average household income. Now, this number might look low to some of you. When they work out average household income, the Wall Street Journal used to be the thing that we always looked at that really had premier clients. Well, the Wall Street Journal's average is actually less than 100K. And I'm not sure how they get this number, but what you can see is that that's a high average household income, especially when you leverage it across 470 million members. Another stat is that 3 out of 4 users use it for company research and getting business news. So we've got professionals, the right people, coming and looking at it. The other thing I really love about LinkedIn, and this is a stat that I found in a press release from LinkedIn a couple of years ago, and it really was interesting. So C-level executives, CEO, CFOs, CSOs, CMOs, all those high-level executives, the 7.8% of the profiles in LinkedIn are these people. Executive vice president or senior vice president, 6.5% in that category. What are termed as senior management, and my guess is that this is director level positions, is around 16%. Middle management, so these are managers, is around 18%. Well, if we total this up, about just over 43% of people on LinkedIn are decision makers, or at least might have some decision-making power depending on what you're selling. So to me, it's the great place to look and find the right type of people for my business. One of the things that you'll find with LinkedIn is that LinkedIn will show you your client base visually your network visually for the first time. So not only can I see who I'm connected to, but I can also look further and see who they're connected to. I can see that Joe knows Tammy and Marcia, and I can see that Bob knows these people, and Sue knows these people. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to leverage the fact of who your network knows. So if I want to talk to Joe and say, I've been trying to get a hold of Tammy, can you introduce me? He could absolutely do that. Now, I have this story that I always tell when I speak, and it always gets a laugh. And I should tell you, this is a $10,000 story, because that's what it ultimately cost me to tell this story. I had somebody had attended one of my sales courses, and they called me up a little while after and said, I've been trying to get a hold of this person for months, and I know that they could use my services, and I would love the fact if you could maybe help me, because no matter what I try, I can't get a hold of them. So I said, okay. And he said, I'll pay you 10% of whatever I get out of the original order if you can help me. So I said, all right. So I asked him if he had done a few things, and he had tried a lot of things. And I said, okay. I said, have you looked on LinkedIn to see who you know might know him? And he said, no. And I said, okay. And so right then in the office, we pulled up LinkedIn, and I looked at it and I said, you've got 3 contacts that know this person, but the one that kind of interested me the most is this person named Barbara. And he kind of went white. And I said, and Barbara has the same last name as you. And he kind of continued to go even whiter. And I said, is Barbara related to you? Barbara turns out to be his wife. His wife had him as a first level connection in LinkedIn. So she had connected with him. I said, give me your cell phone, which he didn't want to do, but he gave me a cell phone, found his wife on speed dial. I called her and then put her on speakerphone. And I got her on speakerphone, and I said, you have a connection that your husband's been trying to get a hold of. I said, do you know this person? And she said, yeah, I do. Actually, we're on the same curling team. So the person that he was trying to get a hold of was, so I offered that I would forgo my fee for the opportunity to tell story. Interesting was his wife was able to make one phone call. Now, he had made probably 8 or 9 phone calls. His wife was able to make one phone call, put the 2 of them in touch. He had a meeting within a few weeks, and his first order came back from them, which was over $100,000. So I always say it's my $10,000 story, because I didn't charge him because his wife knew the guy. And the fact was, it took about 3 minutes of my time, but it's a great story. And that's the power of LinkedIn, is now I can see who my network knows, and I can ask, hopefully not from your wife or husband, for that introduction. One thing I want to make sure we're clear on is there's networking and prospecting. And so networking is everybody who you know. That's your neighbors, the people you went to school with, people you work with. That's people you go to church with. It's everybody that you know and come in contact with, typically are part of your network. Prospecting is a more select group. Prospecting is those people who are your ideal prospects. These are people who would or could have the opportunity to use your product. So it would make sense that they're part of that ideal that ideal target audience for you. And ultimately, if you haven't done this, is you've got to be really clear on who it is who's most likely to buy your product or service. And I spend a lot of time working with clients to make sure that we have this nailed down tight. And if your first thought is everybody could buy from me, you're lost, because not everybody will buy from you. Not everybody should buy from you. But you need to have that target audience really tightly defined. And that's where it's going to help you on LinkedIn, is if I know specifically who my target audience is, I can make sure that I'm connecting with those people on LinkedIn. But let me go over how LinkedIn looks at your network. So LinkedIn says a first level connection is anybody you're connected to on LinkedIn. So Joe and I are first level connections. Joe invited me to connect, or I invited Joe to connect, and somebody accepted. We then become on LinkedIn first level connections. A second level connection is Joanne here is anybody she's connected to that I'm not. So they're a second level connection. Really, a second level connection means that they're one introduction away. So LinkedIn says these are second level connections. They're part of your network. Third level connection is really kind of a friend of a friend. So third level connections are people who Joanne is connected to and their connections. And so they're sort of a long way away. It would take two introductions, one from somebody who doesn't know me to ultimately connect with them. LinkedIn terms, people who we're in a common group with. So this is virtual groups within LinkedIn. If I'm in a group with some of them, LinkedIn says that they're part of my network. But I want to focus on what I deem as a usable network within LinkedIn. And a usable network is first degree connections. So these are all the people you know. And second degree connections. And so second degree connections means that I could approach somebody in my network if I wanted to connect with them. And the other one is really group connections. So if I'm active in a group and I'm connected, is that I do have the ability through LinkedIn to connect with people that I'm in similar groups with. So let's kind of go over the nitty gritty of LinkedIn. LinkedIn allows you to create a personal profile. So first rule of thumb, your personal profile is not your resume, unless you're looking for a job. Your personal profile should be written for your target audience, so that your target audience should read it and go, ooh, I should talk to that person. And you should structure it so that anybody looking at it can figure out what it is you specifically do. And I always suggest is you talk about who you help and how you help them. And your professional profile, it's all up to you on how you structure it, what you put on, what you don't put on if you don't want to. I know with some clients, there's certain jobs that we take off their professional profile because they're not related or they just cause confusion. So I have a client that I work with who used to be a prison guard, and right now he's an executive coach. He doesn't necessarily want the world to know that he was once a prison guard, so we don't include it. We don't have to include it. We're not applying for a job. Your personal profile can be structured any way you want, but the idea behind it is really to help you show your target audience who they're working with, who they're dealing with. LinkedIn is about building a network, and you want to strategically go about building your network. It's not about companies, because companies don't give you business, people do. And so ultimately, it's about the people you want to connect with and making sure that you're connecting with the right people. And we all have decisions to make when it comes to LinkedIn. And there's really kind of two camps. There's the open networker camp, which means these people will connect with anybody and everybody. And their idea is, more people I'm connected to, the better off there is. There's a selective networker who only connects with people that they 100% know. So if they've never met you, they don't connect with you. Now, me personally, I'm somewhere in the middle on this. And typically, what I do with my network is I'm very selective about who I'm trying to connect with. If somebody connects with me, typically I'm going to look at it, make a recommend, and really make a decision, not a recommendation, make a decision on, is this somebody that I should be connecting with? So to be honest, if it's coming from Asia, or it's coming from India, or all these different places, I'm going to look at it and see, is this a real person? Is there any advantage for me to connect with this person? If there's not, I don't tend to connect. I just dismiss it and get on with my day. But I'm very selective about who I try and connect with, so who I'm making efforts to connect with. And then I'm connecting with other people. And I divide up my network into two, which is I have prospects in my network, and I have people who are just casual acquaintances, or really just part of my network. They'll never buy from me, but they are still part of my network. And what you have to do is make a decision where you want to fall on this. And my guess is most of you will probably either fall more towards a selective networker or somewhere in the middle. Now, when it comes to network, there's kind of a word we all miss in the title, which is the work part. So the fact that we connect on LinkedIn isn't enough. It's not like hockey cards when we're kids. LinkedIn isn't a whole game of got 'em, need 'em, and you just connect with those you need and then move on with your day. Unfortunately, that's what most people do with LinkedIn. And it really is a tragic shame, because after I connect with you, what I need to do is I need to try and engage with you. Because your network isn't of much value on LinkedIn unless you're talking with them, unless you know what they do, unless they know what you do. And you have to initiate those conversations. So let's talk about building that network. How do you build your network on LinkedIn? Well, LinkedIn, when you joined, probably wants you to upload your address book. And you get lots of opportunities. You'll notice over on the right-hand side, I can upload Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, AOL, man. I can import a list if I have a database. I can upload a file. There's all kinds of different ways that I can connect. And what I always suggest to people is upload your database once. So often when you're just starting, or if you have never done it, upload the database. Now, LinkedIn will give you a couple of options when you upload your database. And one is it'll offer to send an invitation to everybody who's on LinkedIn, who's in your database you're not already connected with. And this is the only time I'll say it's okay to send out a basic LinkedIn email, because I'm assuming if they're in your address book, you know them, they would know your name, and so they would probably accept the generic LinkedIn invitation. That's absolutely fine. The other option that LinkedIn gives you is, after connecting with the people you know and sending out a mass email, it'll say, these people don't seem to have a LinkedIn profile. Would you like to invite them to LinkedIn? And the answer to that is always no. Don't invite them to LinkedIn. It's actually how so many duplicate profiles get created on LinkedIn, is because somebody has two addresses. And to be honest, I probably have 4 or 5 email addresses. And so somebody will send me an invitation to connect with them on LinkedIn because they've got my personal email address. And then others have my business email address. Well, LinkedIn says those addresses aren't linked unless they're in your profile. And that's actually what I end up doing is I make sure all my email addresses are in my profile so that I'm not getting a request from my network to join LinkedIn. But I always suggest is, upload your address book. It's a great way to start or grow your network with not necessarily a ton of work. There's another feature on LinkedIn, which is called the people you may know. And this will give you a list of people that you might know. And it is based on an algorithm that works in the back end of the system, which is looking to see your connections, where you've worked, time period you went to school, all these things. And then what it works on doing is putting those people and suggesting them to you. And if there's someone you don't know or don't want to connect with, you can always hit the dismiss button on it. Now, what I suggest to you is when they suggest somebody and you go, ooh, I'd really like to connect with that person, don't hit the connect button here. Big mistake. Click through their profile. And when you click through the profile, you'll find another connect button. And if you hit that connect button, it will pop open the ability to leave a custom message. And I never want to send the generic message. If I click on connect here when it's suggesting these people, it'll send off the generic, I'd like to add you part of my personal network on LinkedIn, which is the worst message in the world, especially if they're people who you don't know that well. Write a personal message, and we'll kind of outline that for you just to show you what a personal message might look like. But typically, I want to tell them why I want to connect with them, especially if it's somebody I haven't met before. And I find if I do write that personal message, I get way more people connect with me. You have the alumni search. So if you have a school in your profile, you have the ability to click on that school and it'll show you alumni, and it'll also say where those alumni live, what they do now, where they work, and you can start to work through that. And it's a great way to find people for your network and also prospects for your business. There's, of course, at the top, the advanced search or the search bar. And if I type in a name, LinkedIn will start looking for that name. And typically what they'll do is they'll suggest people first who are just outside. So you'll see a lot of second level connections come up. And you'll notice I typed in Jim Smith, but if you see on the screen, it's pulling up James Smith, it's pulling up Jim Smith. It's also pulls up some variations so that you're getting that full thing. And it's, it pulled back for me 18,212 results. What I can also do is I can also on the right-hand side here is add some more criteria if Jim Smith isn't kind of specific enough. So if Jim Smith lives in Utah and I met him on a business trip, I'd probably have to select in what location he lives in to come up with that right name. One great tip to do on LinkedIn is anybody you connect with, if you get a business card from them, immediately go connect with them on LinkedIn. And in that message, tell them that, hey, we met at a networking event yesterday, thought I'd just send you an invitation so we could connect on LinkedIn. It is a great way to build up your network with people that you're connecting. It also gives you another point of reference with them. It gives them a reminder of, oh yeah, I met with that guy at the networking event. And then when you follow up, you connect with them on a regular basis, is they start to recognize who you are. They will start to take some interest in what it is you do. So what I mentioned earlier, which is how to invite people to connect on LinkedIn. This is LinkedIn's email address. You've probably seen it 100 times. Email that they send out, which says, "I'm requested to add you as a connection on LinkedIn," and it says, "Dear Alan, I'd like to, add you to my personal network on LinkedIn." When I get one of these, I have to go look at the profile to see who it is. And to be honest, if they don't know me and haven't written anything personal, and they have a sparsely written profile, I just delete the invitation. I don't connect with people. So what you want to do is you want to be different. And if you want to connect with people you're not connected with, you want to write a personal message. And it doesn't have to be an elaborate personal message, but you do have to tell them why you want to connect with them. Now, as I said, if you can make yourself memorable, if you can pull a memory, so say we met on the airplane going to Tucson, or we met in the Winnipeg airport, that helps people to realize who you were, makes them more likely to accept that. Doesn't mean you have to be wildly creative. That's not what I mean by being memorable, but you should anchor it to something if you can. If not, just make sure that you give them a reason why you want to connect with them. Hey, I loved your last book, or I saw your presentation on nuclear physics and I wanted to add you to my network. That'll allow people to decide whether that they want to connect with you or not. But try and be succinct, because you only got so many characters on this anyway, but be personal. And it only takes about 30 seconds to do this. And I'll tell you, if you write a personal message every time, you're way ahead of everybody else, because most people just never do this. And that's how I'm able to connect more with my target audience, because I tend to write personal messages for them. I give them a reason why we should connect. And my whole thing is, you always want to be adding to your network. You always want to be connecting with people. Now, I'll tell you, is my network is normally under 2,000 people. And I prune my network. So if I've connected with somebody and I've sent them a few messages and get no response, I always look at it and go, well, unless they're a friend or someone I personally know, why do I want them in my network? Because if I can't get them to connect in any way, if I can't get them to engage, or even just send a, hey, thanks for the email or Merry Christmas back, they're not really somebody I want. They're the hockey card collectors who want that high number. I want to have 10,000 people in my network. Get rid of them. They're not of much use to you if you can't connect with them in any way. LinkedIn is a networking and prospecting tool, not a marketing channel. And what I mean by this is that you have to nurture your network. You can't just collect and not do anything with it. So when I connect with people, I always have a templated email that I send back. They don't know it's templated, but you now do. But typically, when I connect with somebody new, I have an email that if they invited me, I always send an email back thanking them for the connection and also inquiring about their business. When I connect with somebody and they accept, I always send a message back asking them about their business. Now, why do I ask them about their business? Is because if you're interested in them, they'll become interested in you. And what most people want to do when they're on LinkedIn is talk about their own business. So I avoid talking about my business right at the start, but more about them and their business. And because I'm connecting with my prospects, so people who could use my services, and they tell me about their consulting practice or their business and fill me in on it, I then get the opportunity to ask more questions and find out more information. And they get to tell me, but they'll also often then reciprocation. Mom and dad did good work and they made you want to be polite. And so they're going to ask about, well, what does your business do? And so I have a prepared thing that I send out, which just says, oh, I help small business owners with who have the problem of not enough sales. And it's a very simple thing, but that usually spawns that discussion. And then what I do is I often ask them is, hey, sometimes I get resources that might be of interest to you. Do you mind if I send them along to you as I come across them? And nobody ever answers no to that. And so every so often I do have a schedule, is I'll send them a tool or a webinar or a little video that I have. And it's usually about how to grow sales. Here's some things that you can do. And that's how I start getting business off LinkedIn, is I don't immediately say, I help business with sales. You should buy from me. Here's all my products. That turns people off way, way, way faster than anything else you can do. I had somebody connect with me the other day. I knew them locally. They sent me a message. First message was, we sell bottled water and water coolers. I'd love to show you my samples. And it was like, whoa, we just connected. Why are you sending me all this stuff? If over a period of time, she had have asked about my business, had talked to me, said, do you have an office? Well, my office, I like working out of the house, so my office is in my house. I don't need a water cooler. Well, maybe I do. But if you're not engaged in any dialogue, you're not nurturing your network, then it just feels like, you're walking around knocking on doors saying, do you need this? No. Next door, do you need this? No. That's not what this is about. If you connect with your network and take some interest in your network, they'll take some interest in you. What I try and do is I try and use LinkedIn daily. So every day I'm trying to connect with some more of my target audience. And I have about a 30-minute ritual, and I have an egg timer on my desk, and I set it to 30 minutes, and I work on LinkedIn for 30 minutes a day, and that's it. Because it can be the bottomless pit like any social media. If you delve into it, and I can get lost in reading people's posts and doing this and doing that. What I do is I have a set routine of what I do every day in LinkedIn, and it takes about 30 minutes. And I can do it in the morning, or I can do it later in the day. And that's a little bit what I love, is I got some flexibility of when I can spend that time on LinkedIn. So here's my rules of thumb. With people in your network. So these are people who but ultimately they're not your ideal customers. I check in with them about once every 6 months minimum. With prospects, what I'm doing is I'm connecting, sending things, talking with them once every 3 months. And so that's about 4 times a year. If you throw in Christmas and Easter and some of the other holidays where I'll send extra messages, I'm probably in front of them 5 to 6 times a year. And I use LinkedIn Mail. Sometimes I use email directly. So if we're connected, I can also see the email. So sometimes I move from LinkedIn Mail to email. Sometimes I'll pick up a phone. It's interesting is that if we've had good conversations, I'll look them up on the internet and make a phone call and leave them a voicemail message wishing them a Merry Christmas. You'd be surprised at how well those things go, because what I want to do is I want to move them from my virtual connection, my online connection, to a real live connection where we're going to use things like phone or Skype or video or in person. The other thing you need to do with your network is you need to reach out to them and connect with them. So you often need reasons to connect. Now, I build that as part of my sales plan, is reasons to connect. I have things, I have helpful resources I give away. But I also look at their activity on LinkedIn. I can see things that they've posted. I can see what they've done, see things they've changed. And when I find those things, I use those things as a reason to reach out. You got a new job, I'll reach out to them. They posted an article, I'll send them a message saying, hey, that's a great article. Really liked your take on that. Because the more you learn about the people in your network, especially those prospects, the more you'll be able to leverage them. So I had somebody send me a client the other day, and it came from the fact that we had a conversation. And she had told me that a friend of hers was just starting a business and really could use some help. And I said, well, I've got some free resources. If you want to make an introduction, I'll happily share some things with her to help her. Well, that got me a client in one of the products we sell, which is an online education system for those solopreneurs. Other thing to do with your network is connect your network. So what I want to do is I want to connect with people in my network and connect them to others in my network. So if Jim is looking for an interior designer for his new office space, I'm going to look and see if I have anybody locally in my network and make that introduction. I just introduced a graphic artist to one of my clients who said to me that he was struggling with trying to do his website himself. And so I said, you know what? I've got the perfect person who can help you. And nothing but good things happens when you connect two great professionals in your network together. So let's talk about prospecting and selling using LinkedIn. One of the things that I can do is if I'm connected with Christine, I can see who Christine knows. And if there's some people in Christine's network that I'd like to meet or wouldn't mind an invitation to, or just some information on, I can approach Christine and ask about them. I can also use LinkedIn as a research tool to discover who in an organization is the decision maker and see if I know anybody in my network who knows that decision maker. So I use LinkedIn all the time to search for specific company presidents or vice presidents of sales or business owners. And I use LinkedIn as that research tool. The great thing about LinkedIn is there is no gatekeeper. So you can connect with very senior people through LinkedIn. And the reason is because nobody has their personal assistant doing the work in LinkedIn. They're reading their own invitations for the most part. They're connecting with people. They're conversing with people. And I like the fact that I can talk to senior executives without that gatekeeper involved. I can also use it to search for prospects. Like I mentioned earlier, if I want to find everybody who's in Winnipeg with the title of president, that returns 5,063 searches, like you can see on the screen here. And I could add other criteria to find them. Now, I know that I've got, a couple of these who are second level connections, LinkedIn's telling me. So I can look and see, who do we know together? They're the ones where it says shared connections. So I'll look at my shared connections and say, who knows Dan? That's the power of LinkedIn, is I can see who my network knows. And I can save a list on LinkedIn. So I can save this search. So when new people get added, LinkedIn will tell me. Other activities you can do on LinkedIn to generate sales is LinkedIn has a feature to see who's looked at your profile. If somebody's looked at your profile, I do the return. I look at their profile. If it's somebody who I think I should connect with, I'll send them a message trying to connect with them. You should always connect with your customers on LinkedIn, because your customers will tend to hang out with people just like them. Vice president of sales, hang out with other vice president of sales. That could be a lead for you in your network. So you want to make sure that you're connecting with people who you're doing business with. You want to know and understand your network and classify your network. So I want to know who's just part of my network and then who is a prospect within my network. You want to connect with prospects. So I'm very strategic about who I connect with and who I'm inviting to join my network on LinkedIn. And those are going to be people that are part of that ideal target audience that I have. If I'm connected with a prospect, I'm going to follow their company page if they have one. And so if there's new news posted on there, like they're hiring or like their press releases or other things, I get to see that in my news feed. I can ask for customer referrals on LinkedIn. I can use it to prepare for a sales meeting. I'll tell you, as you get a ton of information from a LinkedIn profile if you go through it. And one of the things we teach in our LinkedIn course is specifically a 10-minute review of a LinkedIn profile and what it can mean to your next sales meeting. And the other thing it allows you to do is deepen relationships. I have a lot of customers I've gotten from LinkedIn who I've never met personally. I've never been to their office. I've never talked. We met through LinkedIn. We had a conversation through LinkedIn, and ultimately they became a customer with only telephone conversations. The other area in LinkedIn I just want to touch on is using groups to generate revenue. LinkedIn has groups for different professions or different interests. Now, most people will try and join a LinkedIn group that they fit in. So if you're a executive coach or you're a human resources professional, your immediate thought is, well, I'll just join the human resources group, and I'll join the executive coaches group, and I'll join the speakers group. Well, those people aren't going to buy anything from you because they're just like you. What you should be doing is saying, hey, I'm an executive coach. Where's the group where executives hang out? Or I work with executives in the construction area. Where do executives in the construction area? So I want to make sure that I'm joining groups strategically on LinkedIn. I want to make sure that I'm joining groups that my target audience is in. And I'll give you some great tips for when you're part of a group. So the first one, rule of thumb, don't self-promote, no sales pitches. The most business I get is when I help people with their problems, not talk about how great I am. I demonstrate it. I show people by saying, hey, you're having a problem with sales. Here's some things that you could do. Here's some advice. That does a better job for me than saying, we have a training course that's 2 days, $1,000, going in Tucson. Would you like to join? Well, how do I know if you're any good? And what you want to do is look for discussions that you can add value to. So these groups have discussions. You want to add value to any discussions that are going on in the group. And as I said, give away your expertise. The more you share with people, the better off you'll do. Because the hardest thing for anybody to hire is usually a consultant or a service, because you're always wondering, is this the right person to help me? LinkedIn will allow you to share your expertise, show that you're the person, and you'll find that you'll get work out of that. Start discussions around your area of expertise. Oh yeah, and play nice. Look, on any social media systems, there are trolls, there are people who will try and bait you, there'll people tell you you're wrong. Don't get sucked into it, because everything you do is on display. Mom said to play nice. Mom gives great advice. The other thing is, don't be a sheep. What you'll find is, if I see a question on LinkedIn that 7 people have answered and all answered exactly the same way, I'm not going to be next one in to answer it exactly the same way. But if everybody's answering it one way, and I think there's another way they should look at it, don't be afraid to give a contrary opinion, to say, hey, here's what I might suggest based on my experience. You'll find that when you often go in an opposite direction of the crowd, is that others will have been thinking the same way and will look at that advice and go, now there's somebody who I'd like to work with, because they're not thinking just like everybody else. They've got some different solutions to the problems I have. And that really goes with this. If you believe it, you can say it. You just have to keep that play nice in mind. So if I think that I've got a different way that they might want to consider, I'm happy to share that with them. And most of all, in participating with groups, is when somebody's in a group and they say something smart or really intelligent, or you like their opinion, is connect with that person. Send them a message that I really like what you wrote. Love to see if you'd like to be part of my network. And so I make connections that way through a group. So we've had some personal interaction, and then we connect. If you're going to be part of a group, make sure that you stop by on a regular basis. And pick the groups and spend time in the groups. So that's part of my routine every day, is spending some time in the groups, answering questions or participating. And if you find a group sucks, get rid of it. Get rid of the dead wood. If I find a group is just people spamming and saying, buy my product, do this, do that, I just get out. I don't need to be in there. And remember, with groups, it's about the people in the group. It's about connecting with the right people. So let me just wrap this up and we'll get to questions. Here is what you should do every day in LinkedIn. And this is my 30-minute ritual, is I reach out to 5 people every day. So I'm going to connect with people who are already in my network, and I got them on a rotation, and I'm going to make sure that I'm connecting with them. And the other thing that I do with that group is that I put it in my CRM system to make sure that I know who I'm going to reach out to in that day. It allows me just to keep everybody on a bit of a schedule. If you get the opportunity, post something that might be relevant to your target audience on there. This is where I spend the majority of my time in this 30 minutes, is looking for questions to answer or discussions in groups. So I'm looking and going to spend, and I'll probably spend about half my time on LinkedIn kind of answering those. I'm also going to look for any clients that I might like their work or I've worked with, and I want to give them a recommendation. And I'm also going to search for people I've recently met or people in my target audience. So if I'm trying to connect with small business owners, I'm looking in some of the groups and some of the other places to reach out and connect with them. So quick sales plug is, if you're interested in a sales help, we do have a tool called Selling Solo, which this LinkedIn course is, our full LinkedIn course is part of, but we also have probably over 50 hours of sales material. And every other week we do a new live webinar on a sales topic to help you grow your sales. And we'll send you an offer at the end of this. You can join that for $300 a year. And basically, you get access for a full year to all that material. And if you have sales questions, you can get them answered. So why don't we open this up for any of you who have any questions about LinkedIn or regarding LinkedIn. Sometimes I know this is a lot of material, and I know that we've spent 50 minutes so far, and it feels a little like drinking from a fire hydrant. But as I said, if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I had an earlier question which says, from Tate, saying, do you find people can get customers off of LinkedIn? Yeah, I mean, I have firsthand experience, because when I started my own business, that's how I generated clients, was I connected with them in LinkedIn. I'm also not necessarily in the best spot for my business, in the sense that I'm in the Okanagan Valley, small tourist area. There are lots of small businesses, but I do get the majority of my clients from LinkedIn, from speaking, from presenting, and my clients are typically all over North America. And so LinkedIn for me was a great way to connect with my target audience and to continue to connect with them without a huge advertising budget. Sinclair asks, should I buy the upgraded version? Actually, what I showed you today is all in the free version. It is 100% available in that free version of LinkedIn. LinkedIn just changed, by the way. Those are all new screenshots, and we're just finishing updating our LinkedIn course because it drastically changed, and I just got the changes last week. It's not as good as it used to be. They've taken some functionality away. one of the things they took away that there are two things I absolutely loved. One thing they took away was the ability to search by zip code or postal code. So I used to be able to put in a 5-digit zip code or a Canadian postal code and be able to search a geographic range around that. That's no longer in LinkedIn, and I think they've put it in some of their higher level stuff. I can still do searching, just not necessarily as pinpoint. And if I'm not in a high density area, so if you're in a big city or near a big city, you can definitely get the area using the advanced search now. But the issue is that I can't get down to a zip code. So for me in the area I'm in, I have to make sure one of my keywords is the city name for those smaller areas, because I'm not near Vancouver or some of these areas. So that's one of the drawbacks that's come from the change. And you used to be also able to classify people. So I used to be able to add tags to them and make sure that everybody in my network, and so I could used to say, okay, who are my prospects in my network? Now I can't do that anymore in the free version, but I make sure that I put my prospects in my CRM system, my customer relationship management system, so that I also put them on what I call a LinkedIn prospecting track, which means that I'm connected with them on LinkedIn, and it sends me reminders every so often that I need to reach out to them. That's kind of how I manage that. And it's a pretty simple way to do it. And so we just set up that little routine so that I know that, hey, I have to check in with Bob or Sue, or and part of that is, one of the things that I often do is I learn about my clients, and I have interest in my clients and prospects, and I also tend to make notes. So, for example, if I was talking to someone and they mentioned that their daughter loves photography and starting a photography business, well, I'll have that in my notes in my customer relationship management. And so before I send an email or something else, I just do a quick scan of that. And so I might send a message back and say, oh, by the way, how is Peyton doing with her photography business? You'd be surprised about how much stuff like that is valued, that people really value the fact that you remember things that they talked about. And that's a little bit why a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, and there are free ones out there, especially if you're a small business, that don't cost you any money, but they allow you to grow your business. Because part of the problem we all have is if our business is reliant on what we remember, that's the size your business will grow to. So if you can only remember stuff for about 20 clients, when you take 21 on or 22 clients on, all heck breaks loose, and you start dropping the ball on things, start forgetting things. That's where a CRM comes in, is that customer relationship management, where I can make notes, I can have processes, I can do things over and over. And Jim just asked me what CRM. So do I use? I use a product called Infusionsoft. Now, Infusionsoft is expensive because it's full automation, customer and marketing. But most small businesses, I find, especially if you're starting out, don't need that. And so we suggest a product like, it's called Insightly. And Insightly is free if you have under 2,500 contacts in the system and under 2 users. But it is a good system that tends to work really well. And it's 100% free. You can do things. We actually teach a course on Insightly just to get people started with it, because I find if I can get clients on a customer relationship management system, they're more likely to be able to grow their business than if they're kind of winging it with Excel spreadsheets or other things. So we got about 2 or 3 minutes left. So why don't we wrap this up? If you have any more questions on LinkedIn, They come to you afterwards. Feel free to send me an email. My telephone number's there. If you want to phone me, that's absolutely fine. You can visit our website. We've got sales materials up there, webinars, other things that you can access. Or you might want to consider Selling Solo. Selling Solo is our on-site learning portal and help center for solopreneurs and small business owners who are really leaders of their sales organizations. We give sales training. We have videos on there. We probably have, last I checked, probably about 60 hours worth of sales training in different areas, from LinkedIn, sales basics, what to do during an initial meeting, follow-up meeting, all kinds of different things. And every 2 weeks, we do a new webinar where we spend about 30 minutes to an hour talking about a new sales topic and also answering any members' questions that they may have about their sales. So want to thank all of you for coming and spending some time. And if any questions come up that you feel you want to get answered on LinkedIn from this webinar, feel free to email me at the Colin at Lone Star Sales Performance. I'll be happy to help you, and we will send a replay of this so that you can go over it in a little more detail. So thanks everybody, and hope that you have a great day and happy selling.